It's Tony from Hobbit Racing. Hey, thanks for joining me. Welcome back to the Shire. And we're going to talk about emery boards. No, we're not going to talk about emery boards. But I do have a reason why I'm holding this one in my hand. But hey, let's find out what's happening at Hobbit Racing in the month of July. Come on, let's go find out.
What's happening in Hobbit Racing? Well, funny you should ask. I still have to finish this. I don't know. People probably saw me start to work on this car months ago. It's a busy life. We get to run slot cars, so we love it. Sometimes some cars get done before other ones do, but these are next. So we've got that's a wonderful Mustang over there, but then these guys are just high end, highly tunable, and these are two highly tuned Camaros. Extraordinarily fast, and the other one's extraordinarily fast too. Couldn't come up with a hyperbole to go any further than that, but those are two gorgeous cars. Just nothing stock about them, of course, except the chassis and then the body, but just blistering runners. Tony D, and well, beautiful there. Yeah, that man needs no introduction. Good one, man. That car, there's one. There's one. Super tires. Quick slicks. They're both on different days. They're probably within hundreds of each other, or maybe even. Yeah, did I say that right? Yeah. Or who knows? They could be within thousands of each other. Those are gorgeous cars. All right, what else? What else is happening in Hobbit Racing? We already went through that again. That's not done, but man, golly, I can't stop looking at that myself. Oh yeah. We hit up the sides too, right? We got out under there with terrible lighting. I haven't gotten the lighting yet, but there's a door for the employees only and an emergency exit down the far end as you make your way into the forest. It's always a good shot. It's always fun to run a car with lights underneath there. Always fun to get a view from up here. I've always wanted to run cars from up here, but there'd be maybe there's you just to see the sweeper from there is awful difficult, but just somewhere over here. Like I've always wanted to run green with the controller and stand here and see if there was see if there was any advantage. Because you can see your car all the way around the sweeper from here if you stand up. The only thing is I don't know what kind of advantage you gain because sometimes people have difficulty the with a car that's approaching and coming straight at them. That's a difficult decision to make when to stop versus knowing and being used to it when you're standing over here. Whoa! No, I was not drinking. It was that man right there. And so another interesting thing that I've been working on is you can see the slot invasion guide here, and I got some slot invasion stickers. Nice. The slot invasion guide is an interesting guide. It really is an attempt to take up the slop in some instances. And it's also a good guide for the cars themselves, many different varieties. But one of the things that can happen with an 1/8" wood routed slot, and then comparing just how little tolerance there is on a slot invasion guide, where it could be as little as, I don't know, what's an 1/8? 8/64. So is this guide, 7/64? Who knows? I don't know if it's that. My math is probably even wrong if I'm going from whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, we had some folks who were trying out that guide, and it was noticed, that it couldn't make it around. There were certain spots of the track where it literally held up the car. And that's okay. There's obviously you can't run the cars that way, and I'll explain to you what I'm doing right there in a moment. But at the end of the day, there can be minor imperfections. Listen, that bit that you can get at Slot Car Corner is a wonderful bit, and it should be tried and true every time. But wood is a living, breathing thing as well. And the fact remains that Scott Culp painted the slots in this track years ago. And at the end of the day, that guide has such little tolerance that all it takes is just a little bit of paint to have dripped and formed a little bit differently, where, if I take that and show you that it's stuck there, but then if I take it and run it here, it runs perfectly fine. And so what I've done is I've created a little, custom emery board with about, I don't know, that like maybe 300 grit, 400 grit, and that's the width of a slot invasion guide. And so, again, no problem in other areas, but then when you get to certain spots where it's no problem, then all of a sudden, oh, we're stuck. And so, time permitting, I'm making my way around the track. We know there's 2 spots over there in red and yellow that get stuck in the back end by the total energy sign. It's a spot in the infield that gets stuck as well. And some of the slots, whether it be a curve or not, they don't have any problem whatsoever. The whole entire thing glides through. Whoops, I'm not even showing it. No problem whatsoever. You can run a complete lap, but it's just a consequence of what happens. So what I'm working on is making a way that the entire track can be quote unquote compliant to the slot invasion guide. I personally want to try some of the slot invasion guides. They look really, really nice, well formed, whether they're 3D printed or molded, but just a lovely, lovely guide that I would like to be able to put in some of my cars and try them out. And, it just seems like a really, really nice setup. And, whether it's a deeper blade or in this instance, I don't know how deep that blade is, I would like to give them a try. I'd like to be able to feel that performance, right? The number one thing we feel on our finger when we're pulling the trigger is not only the acceleration, but how that car handles in the slot, right? When you drive slot cars long enough, you start to realize just how important the feel of that guide is. So that's another thing that I'm working on. So it's going to take some time. It's not like, not that many people have them and the request is out there. And so I'm going to take a look and see where else and just make sure that we can make a complete lap in each lane with that guide. But it's going to require me to, the track's on wheels, obviously, but it's going to require me to roll it out and, move the bumper down there that puts the computer over to the track. So not an instantaneous thing, but we're working on that. We probably won't have that done when we finally get a chance to run in a couple of weeks the Trans Am. And gosh, what's paired up with Trans Am? My mind is drawing a blank for some unknown reason. What is paired up with Trans Am? But when we get out there with Trans Am and classics, mostly people run fly. Then after that, then I should get a better opportunity. Plus it's summer, so things are busy around here with vacations and whatnot. But yeah, that's just a little update to what we're doing because we want to give all brands and all manufacturers some love out there. And if we can't test something on the track just due to a little bit of extra drip of paint or whatever imperfections, then that's how we can go about making things better, right? So it's a fun view you don't see of the track very often. That just gives you some intricacies of what's really happening there. So yeah, a brief update there of some routing work just to sand it down. And again, just working on that beautiful Mustang that I hope to have ready for Trans Am. But if not, like I said, I'll have my pick of the litter over there. And then, oh goodness, let's come over here and turn the light on and take a quick peek at what we have going on for options. We'll create a quick little box around those 6 cars. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's time for the Toblerone to come out. Or maybe it's time for the 908 right below it to come out. But those are my Fly Classics options right now in the current state. All beautiful and, well, they all have something in common, but I'll let you all figure that out, right? I almost forgot, but how could I? I also wanted to review briefly this wonderful tool that is for slot cars. And you might say, but Tony, that's just a C-clamp, isn't it? Aha, at first glance, it might appear like a C-clamp, but ultimately, it is not a C-clamp. Mr. Ron Rutger, his brother-in-law, actually did some engineering on this for the press. And you'll notice a couple of things. Hopefully you can see daylight peeking through that end. I know it's going to be really difficult for me to show, but maybe you can see that hole also right about there in the middle of that screw. This tool will now allow you to do several different things. This can be a gear presser. This also can be a gear presser for axles. Axles will fit inside there, and you can press on certain gears that might be more tighter fitting. Not all axles are created equal, not all gears are created equal, right? Like NSR axles are a little bit different than slotted axles and maybe slotted plus axles. So if you have a tight fit, you can actually press on a gear into a place that you want it and still do okay with the tolerances of that axle and still successfully then put a set screw on to hold your wheel in place. So some really novel thinking here, as you can see, and I've yet to try it out, but I know it's been used by Ron, and I know he's told me there's been success with it. In fact, he used it for one other thing. He's also trying some press-on washers with wheels. So instead of putting that set screw in there, which, you know, if you're being really a stickler for the rotational weight of that, if you don't put a set screw in there, wherever the set screw spot is that I'm referring to, right there, then you get a better rotational balance, I suppose. And so you can also press a tightly fitting spacer on there that will stay on 3/32 axles. And then you kind of set it and forget it. And then the actual wheel creates even less friction because then the wheel is just free floating on the front axle as well. Now you couldn't do that in the rear, obviously, but you can do it for front wheels. So this tool can come in quite handy, and I'm excited to try it out. I haven't had a situation where I needed to press, say, an NSR gear onto a different kind of axle, but I am interested in checking this out as a gear press for sure. That'll be a nice thing to try out for sure. So I really appreciate that. And again, some thought went into that for sure, right? You had to really put some thought into that to do that. So I love the DIY thing. You guys know that because you know me. All my scenery out there is a DIY. Well, except for those trees in the forest, but most of my scenery is a DIY. So, you know, again, the idea here is I love the DIY stuff. So of course I'm going to give that a try. So I almost forgot about that, but Mr. Ron Rutger, I greatly appreciate that.
So, as you can see, we are doing a little bit of maintenance on the track. We are getting very excited because two classes that I love, Trans Am and Classics, where again, most of our group runs Fly Classics. And I got a new tool to play around with. And I love new tools. And my gosh, forget about a new tool. It's a new slot car tool. So what's not to love about that? So that is what's happening at Hobbit Racing. And don't forget, if you like this kind of content, hit that like button. More importantly, hit that subscribe button and leave me some feedback in the comments. It really helps the algorithm for this little channel where we're doing little things with these little cars. So thanks for watching.
If you don't subscribe to Hobbit Racing, I'll poke you with my staff. Pokey, pokey, pokey.
She will poke you with her staff.
Pokey!